Hello, my name is John Kirksey, and the following is the presentation made by me at the annual luncheon of the Galveston Bay Foundation. The title of the presentation is The Galveston Bay, Past, Present, and Future. First, let's start with a general overview of the bay. Galveston Bay represents some 600 square miles and is home to the third largest port in America. The bay represents 1/3 of the commercial and recreational fishing in Texas, representing roughly $3 billion a year in economic impact. The bay is home to the third largest concentration of recreational watercraft in the U.S., and 1 in 3 area residents say they use Galveston Bay for recreational purposes. Finally, the Bay and Ship Channel is home to companies producing roughly 3% of the hydrocarbon-based products in the world. Impressive numbers for sure, yet the key issues relative to the bay are not clearly understood by most of our area residents. Next, let's define the major stakeholders for Galveston Bay. They would include, first, the commercial users, such as industry, shipping, and municipalities that use the bay in many different ways. Second would be the recreational users, boaters, fishermen, and families using the bay for recreational purposes. And the third group is the caretakers, those who focus on and appreciate the natural beauty and bounty of Galveston Bay and provide a voice for its conservation. Now, from the perspective of this group of stakeholders, let's define the optimum set of characteristics for Galveston Bay. First, we want the bay to be wet or filled with water. Secondly, deep, a commercial requirement. Then ecologically balanced and productive at historic levels. We would want it to be a recreational asset, to be well managed, and lastly, to be sustainable. Let's also assume that all three stakeholders share a common goal of creating and preserving these characteristics for future generations. So with this background, let's take a look at the past, present, and future of Galveston Bay. For the past, let's use 1851 as the benchmark year, the year Colonel A.D. Bache and his crew produced the first U.S. coastal survey of Galveston Bay, resulting in the map dated that same year that we saw at last year's luncheon. Using that map as our guide, the bay would be described as having an average depth of 7 feet, many areas of shoaling, an extensive system of oyster reefs, and large areas of submerged seagrasses. The shoreline had well over 100,000 acres of coastal marsh and was surrounded in large part by absorptive and filtering upland grass prairies. It was fed by 2 major rivers, the Trinity and San Jacinto, and numerous smaller tributaries with wooded shorelines, which also aided in filtering runoff. And due to these filtering shore environments, the bottom stabilizing benefits of the oyster reefs, and the extensive submerged seagrasses, the bay held large areas of clear water. It likewise enjoyed a regular influx of water from the Gulf of Mexico from the 2 major passes at Bolivar Roads and St. Louis Pass. Finally, and based upon this beneficial blend of fresh and salt water, the bay supported a bountiful and wide range of aquatic, bird, and other wildlife. Now, while this image of Galveston Bay in 1851 looks pretty much like the bay we see today, take a closer look under that placid surface and we would see a natural, prolific, and balanced estuary in excellent condition. An even more objective look at the bay in 1851 would result in the following report card. We get an A for wet, but an F for deep. A's for both ecologically balanced and productive, but a C for recreation due to the lack of focus on leisure activities at the time. Another A for sustainability, the byproduct of so few people using or taking from the bay, and an F for well managed, as there seemed no need at the time for managing this pristine asset. Now let's move to the present and review the changes that have impacted the bay over the ensuing 160 years. First, in 1915, the Houston Ship Channel was constructed, which brought a large finger of Gulf saltwater reaching far into upper Galveston Bay. This construction also produced extensive uncontained areas of dredge spoil and the associated turbidity. In 1930, the intercoastal waterway was cut through the lower bay, adding additional saltwater infiltration, more spoil spawned turbidity, and the loss of large areas of stabilizing coastal marsh. The middle years of the 20th century saw a major loss of oyster reefs due to the combination of excessive harvesting, dredging, oversilting, and reduced freshwater inflows. In this same time frame, a growing dependence on groundwater led to the drawing down of the Bay Area aquifers, resulting in the subsidence of the bay bottom and surrounding shorelines by as much as 10 feet in some areas, further diminishing our coastal marshlands. Throughout this period, our growing industrial base, coupled with the expansion of the Houston metro area, put an additional strain on the bay with increases in municipal, industrial, and non-point source pollution entering the bay system. By example, it is estimated that more recently, in an average year, the oil and grease alone washing into Galveston Bay is approximately equivalent to 40% of the Exxon Valdez oil spill. Add in shoreline development and ongoing dredging, and the total loss of coastal marsh in this time frame exceeds 50,000 acres, with almost a complete loss of submerged seagrasses. Finally, add to this a reduction in marine life through loss of habitat, bycatch loss, and overfishing, and you can easily picture a greatly compromised Galveston Bay. So today, while this is still the way most of us see the bay, if we took a closer look beneath the surface, we would see that the real story is not a healthy and robust Galveston Bay. Let's also check our Bay report card and we would see the following results. The Bay still gets an A in wet, plus now an A for deep, but we fall to a D and a C for ecologically balanced and productive. We also rate only a C as a recreational asset, as consumption of much of our seafood is banned and we have water quality issues in many areas of the Bay. We fail in the category of being sustainable, and we get low marks for management as well. Now for the future, let's jump ahead 40 years and take a look at the Bay in the year 2050, when there will be an estimated 10 million of us living around Galveston Bay. First, let's identify two major issues we will be facing in that time frame. Number one will be the availability of adequate freshwater inflows into the Bay, and secondly, the Hart Institute projected sea level rise of 2 feet in that time frame, a phenomenon that will increase the saltwater inflows into the Bay by almost 20% over today's level, further compounding the need for freshwater inflows. With these issues in mind, let's fast forward ahead to 2050 and speculate what we will have accomplished over that 40-year period. First, we developed a comprehensive state, regional, and local plan for managing freshwater and ensuring that Galveston Bay and our other Texas bays receive adequate freshwater to maintain their health. This was greatly aided by logical conservation efforts by industry, agriculture, and municipalities, improved management of existing freshwater resources, and a radical change in our own water use habits. Then early on, we developed a new economic model for the Bay, a model that balanced the economic value of the commercial, ecological, and recreational assets of the Bay and provided a format for monetizing these values for the collective benefit of the users and the continued well-being of the Bay. Next, we undertook an extensive restructuring of the Bay, adding elevated oyster reefs, reefs adjusted to the rise in sea level and positioned such that we channeled and conserved the freshwater inflows and optimized the blending of salt and fresh water. At the same time, we expanded our very successful marsh restoration program and stabilized large areas of shoreline, seizing key restoration opportunities such as the HL&P Cooling Pond on Trinity Bay and Turtle Bay near the Trinity River mouth. In addition, we introduced new areas of protected submerged seagrass beds, the combination of the two resulting in increased nursery areas, wildlife habitat, and water clarity. Next, we identified and remediated our key sources of contamination, and we instituted an enforcement program for non-point source pollution violators, coupled with an ongoing PR campaign following it in the tradition of the very successful Don't Mess with Texas campaign. Throughout this time frame, we expanded our educational and outreach programs with the goal of building awareness of the Bay within our entire metro area. Finally, we developed a comprehensive long-term management plan for the Bay, a plan containing a well-developed list of goals and one that monitored the state of the Bay against benchmarks not developed based on the health of the Bay in 2000 or even 1960, but on the health and productivity of the Galveston Bay we saw in 1851. Importantly, we did not wait on the federal government to force us to action. We, the stakeholders, took action in the tradition of Coastal Conservation Association and Ducks Unlimited and managed our own resource. We empowered and supported the Galveston Bay Foundation and similar organizations, and we refused to lower our expectations for the future of this great natural resource. So while Bay visitors in 2050 will see the Bay very much as we do today, looking under the Bay surface, they will see a greatly improved and reconstructed Galveston Bay. Not the wild and pristine Bay that we saw in 1851, but still a viable, productive, and invaluable resource for Southeast Texas. Let's also look at our 2050 report card, and we see that once again we get an A in wet and deep, but we've improved to an A in ecologically balanced and productive. And we also get an A as a recreational asset with both untainted water and marine life. We fall a little short of being fully sustainable as we still face the ongoing demand for freshwater inflows and nagging non-point source pollution, but we do end with an A for our efforts to effectively manage the resource. So, is there a straight A report card somewhere in the future of Galveston Bay? Understanding the importance of the Bay to our region, plus seeing how resilient the Bay has been through these last 160 challenging years, inspire me to see no other option for us but a healthy Galveston Bay. Plus, when you look at what the Galveston Bay Foundation has accomplished in its 24 years, the success of similar organizations, and the impressive programs currently underway, you become a believer that we can indeed and should accept nothing less than an A+ for Galveston Bay in the future. Thank you, and I look forward to working with all of you to get that A+ for Galveston Bay.